welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where we're going to be playing some Geoguessr and roasting some reactionary propaganda. As always, hey Adam, haven't seen you in a bit. And Mask. How are you two doing? Just getting everything set up here. Mask raised a point in the Discord that I wanted to come back to, so it's great that you're here. Because here's the thing. So Mask was talking about the doing a stream on the Reichsbürger and basically the whole issue of sort of the relationship between the German state and neo-Nazi paramilitaries. And I've been wanting to do that for a really, really long time. But the thing is, every time I try to sit down and think of a way to do it, there is just so much stuff that I'm just really not sure how even to, where even to start. So, I am very open to ideas there. Oh, well, last night's stream, we were looking at the first half of Vosh explaining why the left is to blame for the supposed popularity of fucking Andrew Tate. And we're gonna continue on with that because it was a really hot mess, and it was only really just beginning to be a hot mess. Okay, this feels sort of Central European. Okay, maybe even Russian. Is that a Lada? Hang on, we had something with advertising on it a second ago, and then it disappeared. Ah, here we go. Кондукторы, водители. Yeah, we're in Russia. Yes, glad to have you back. Yokushinkai Karate. Oh yeah? Go any place interesting? Ah. It's funny that they changed the name of Sverdlovsk, but they kept the name of the oblast that is named after Sverdlovsk. Sverdlovsk now is, Yekaterinburg. But somehow it's not the Yekaterinburgskaya Oblast, it's the Sverdlovskaya. Okay. Where the heck? Okay, работа мечты. Dream job. On a white panel van. That's where I look for my dream job, on a white panel van. Улица Славянская, 38. Okay, that is about as generic as a street name can get in Russia. That means Slavic Street. Give me something better than that. Well, we know that it has a tram system. Oh, well, it's Vosh. And Vosh is basically making, and I love to point this out because I know he would hate to have this he would hate to hear this. He's making the same fucking point that Caleb Maupin makes. That by insisting on talking about racism and even being against it, and insisting on talking about, being against misogyny, the left is turning off all these possible allies who would just be fine with us, be fine with communism, if only we could just be a little bit more racist and sexist. And, I mean, of course, Vosh has his own way of doing this, which is a lot more dishonest, because he doesn't want to just openly admit what he's saying. Although he does say the left the left has a hatred of masculinity, and that's what's apparently making 12-year-old boys, which is apparently his target demographic, which explains a lot. I mean, he sort of acts like one. Балконы, расширение, остекление, отделка. Okay, that's useless. That just balconies. But yeah. And last night I was trying to just formulate how to say why that is such nonsense. And naturally, as these things happen, I came up with exactly what I meant to say only about 10 minutes after the stream had ended. Because the thing is, what people like, Vosh don't want to acknowledge is that when you are like part of a movement or trying to build a movement that is against all forms of oppression and exploitation, that inherently means that you're going to have some uncomfortable conversations with people who are on the comfortable end of some of those systems. Безопасные, качественные дороги. Safe, quality roads. Okay. Well, I mean, it doesn't look any worse than roads in the US, but that's not a compliment. It's particularly not a compliment to the US. I mean, that's the thing. Because right-wingers can walk up to somebody who's on the comfortable side of, like, racism or the comfortable side of misogyny and tell them what a lot of them probably want to hear, which is that they are where they are because they deserve it. The advantages they have in life are just the result of, doing something to deserve them. And the people, as Thoughtslime put it in a really good video tearing apart a PragerU video on homeless people, you can imagine what that was like. Yes, quality potholes. He said, he summed up the ideology behind this as that people should deserve to have what they have and that they deserve to lack what they lack. And I think that more or less covers why it is so much easier for the right wing to have those sorts of conversations. Have conversations with those sorts of people. Because they're not saying nothing that they're going to say is necessarily all that challenging. Inherently, because they're trying to preserve these power structures rather than get rid of them. We inherently are going to have a harder time, in a way, talking to people who are on the comfortable end of that stuff, because it means acknowledging to them that maybe some of what they've got is actually at the expense of people who are no less deserving than they are. But that all requires us to accept the notion that actually huge numbers of people, like the entire, fucking 12-year-old white boyosphere is just absolutely gagging to follow Andrew fucking Tate. And I have not seen any figures that actually suggest that. In fact, I mean, we would be so much more fucked than we currently are if the Fash were anywhere near as popular as the people who make, whose brand is based on platforming them, like to say. Platforming them or outright working with them. Yeah, it's easier to give people the finger than it is to give people the hand. I mean, and specifically, it is way easier to have a conversation about, if you're going to have a conversation, because he's specifically saying that the left is that the reason Andrew Tate is a thing is the left is falling down on the job when talking to 12-year-old boys. And he hasn't yet provided an example. We're going back to this video. Okay, I'm never gonna find anything that actually tells us where we exactly are. I'm just gonna say probably around here. Oh, fuck. Only 2,116 kilometers off in Krasnodar. Well, I have to say, this did not immediately make me want to book a flight to fucking Krasnodar. I mean, sure, they're lovely people. There are probably some lovely stuff around there. And they're right near the Black Sea, which has its points. I mean, and the wonderful, peaceful region of Crimea is right there. And eastern Ukraine in general. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it must be an absolutely lovely place to be right about now. Kennedy Institute, UMass Commonwealth Museum State Archives Center. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna guess we're in the U.S. And I'm pretty sure we are in Boston. Kennedy Institute, UMass. Yeisk? What, has Kanye got his own, town there now? Freeport Street in Dorchester. Okay. Know basically where we are. Well, okay, that's New York. That is definitely not where we are since we're in fucking Boston. Braintree, Dedham. Needham. Well, I mean, that's a really convenient location right there because you got Needham here and you've got Dedham there. Just, okay, I'm guessing we're on the I-93 here. Ish. Okay, there we go. Oh. 3.4 kilometers, a little bit better than the last time. R. Wherever this place is, it is rated restricted by the Motion Picture Association of America. There's probably a lot of smoking and foul language. And scuffed infrastructure. S. Okay. C. Yeah, not sure where we go in here. I mean, clearly this is a place that uses the Latin alphabet. We can hope, but in this weather, I wouldn't count on it. Okay, and now we've switched fonts and all. What the hell is this place? Gone from... yeah. I mean, I don't think it's the U.S. I mean, it is scuffed infrastructure like the U.S., but it's a different kind of infrastructure. Same kind of scuff, different kind of infrastructure. I'm thinking maybe... I mean, we may be back in Russia, actually, but I don't think so, because that's the Latin alphabet. Could be South America. Yeah, 100% not the U.S. Just this verge here. You never see that in the U.S. Seen that in South America. And now we're back on the capital sans serif letters. S-H E. And then we switch again to italic lowercase f. Chef. Sheffer. Okay, SO526Z. Yeah, Central Europe would be my main guess. No, we're further east. Sizdin Jarnamanuz. We are in, I believe, Kyrgyzstan. I'm pretty sure this is Kyrgyzstan. Because that is Cyrillic, but it is definitely not Slavic. But here we go. Miesta для вашей рекламы. That's the same. It's the Russian for what we just saw. And that is also very on brand for Kyrgyzstan. So I think we're probably just outside of Os. Because on the rare occasions when I've been taken to Kyrgyzstan, we seem to be always either by Bishkek or Osh. I'm going to say someplace outside Bishkek. Because of the Cyrillic alphabet and the Russian and Cyrillic... I mean, the Russian and Turkic combined. And because... There we are. It's just outside of, Bishkek. And there we go. 21,111 points. Totally fucked up that first round. But... did pretty good the rest of the time, and I managed to get almost all the same digit. And I have an appreciation for that. So, we're still fairly early on. That went pretty quickly, considering how long it took me to get the wrong place in Russia. So, we could... Personally, I find the Caucasus region linguistically fascinating. I'm working on learning Georgian right now. Long time ago, I also tried to learn Chechen. I have... Oh, what level am I on, anyway? I'm pretty high up. I'm like a novice wanderer or whatever. I don't know the names of these levels. So I see two options since it's only 11:44. One, 32. There we go. One would be to play another round of Geoguessr, and the other is to just delve right in and start our Vosh roast. Just a big Vosh brai. Oh, the Caucasus is just absolutely next level when it comes to languages, because... Okay, let's do it. I mean, it's a mountainous region, and the thing about mountainous regions is that huge amounts of linguistic diversity arise there. And so you get all these languages with all these features that you don't find pretty much anywhere else. And they're all within like a couple of miles of each other. It's fascinating. Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, excellent. I don't have to fix the crop. Okay, we're gonna dive right in. Aufnahme starten. Now, previously on, we were seeing Vosh sort of try to make offer some kind of excuses for his ridiculous idea that the left is what made. And what he's doing is he's reacting to Big Joel, which confused some people in chat yesterday because they saw the thumbnail of the stream, and the thumbnail was me and like Big Joel, and so they were like, "What are you saying that Big Joel is reactionary?" No, I'm reacting to Vosh, reacting to Big Joel, who in turn is reacting to a guy called Sid, who said the reason that Andrew Tate is popular is the leftists offer bad advice to 12-year-old white boys. Nobody's come up with any examples of it. And most recently, what's going on is Big Joel has said that, we do have to kind of acknowledge that we live in a reactionary society, and that might play a role. And it turns out people often have parents that they genetically arise from, and those also kind of have an influence. And Vosh Vosh has just pointed out you can't acknowledge that there are other factors because there's nothing that can be done about those other factors. You can't. You're only allowed to acknowledge that there are other factors if it is possible to just sort of hand wave them away. That is Vosh's current position. We'll see how long he holds it. Back up a little bit. I had. Oh, hold on. I need to fix the audio.
We told them to believe other things. I mean, we can't rewrite reality here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Vosh had this amazing point where he said that what if leftists just sort of told right-wingers to believe non-right-wing things, and then it would be sorted. That would solve the problem. He cracked the case wide open here. If we just tell them to believe other things, then it'll be sorted.
Obviously, we can't warp time to make it so everyone only gets left messaging, but we can do our part.
Who are Andrew Tate's major fans, and who are their parents? Who did their parents vote for in the last election?
Yes, and Vosh points out that asking questions like this about the demographics that are driving, support for the far right, asking about who it actually is, where they come from, what kind of socioeconomic background, what kind of political background in their family, that's just a distraction. You don't want to discuss that stuff because you might get answers.
This is a question without an answer. I don't like this. Whoever their parents...
Of course he doesn't like this, because if you answer this, it totally wrecks his idea. Because the thing is, you look at who actually is really driving the support for the far right, other than cops, who are really their most stable constituency, and what you find is they tend to be better off. They tend to actually be on the more comfortable end of the income scale, often tend to be very... And, I mean, generally, they are not what you could really call society's, the losers of capitalism.
Parents are. That doesn't mean more can't be done. Also, by the way, worth pointing out, Andrew Tate's fans are incredibly insecure, young, mostly white, but not necessarily white guys.
Wait a second. You just said it was a question without an answer. Now you're answering the question, but you're not going to give a citation.
I would be willing to bet that there are tons of Andrew Tate fans with liberal parents. I don't want to descend into essentialism here. I don't want to it's well, we couldn't have done anything. Yes.
Well, you can't descend back into essentialism without loading another oxygen tank.
You could have. We always can. Never tell yourself oh, this was predetermined. No, we can always try hard.
Nobody's saying it's predetermined. What he's saying here is that there are other factors, and that it is simply, trying to make it the left is the reason this happened is fucking nonsense. And one of the reasons is that simply the left in this country simply does not have that kind of fucking clout.
people do believe in an ideology that calls for suppressing others, suppressing women in particular. And so that's something we should think about here.
I don't believe that.
Wait, you don't believe that the people who are following a far right guy who is extremely and openly misogynist and are his fan base also are misogynistic? You don't believe that? Like, what? Okay, then why do you think they like him?
I don't I don't I don't really think people gravitate towards reactionary ideologies because they like suppressing others. I think that's kind of reductive. I think that people have very strong fear and anxiety responses that get preyed upon by reactionary movements. And one like because if that was the if this was the case, misogynists would not have to constantly promote their ideology through the promotion of anxiety.
Well, yeah, except, well, I wanted to finish this one up because, apart from everything else, hello, Phoenix. I like 10 minutes after I finished the stream, I realized I was trying to the entire time I was trying to formulate the reason what Vosh and what this guy Sid is saying is complete bullshit, and why it isn't the left's fault that it is actually that some conversations with some demographics, namely people who are on the comfortable side of exploitation and oppression in some way or another, are going to be more uncomfortable than the conversations the right wing has with them. And like I was sitting here grasping at it the entire time, and then I thought of it, and I just had this moment of clarity, and it was amazing, and it was 10 minutes after the fucking stream ended. So I want to finish this one up, but we're fairly early on. We might be able to get another one in.
And the fact that they have to go through anxiety means they're trying to prompt a defensive response from the person consuming that ideology.
Yeah, but the thing is that not everybody has a defensive, their anxiety response does not immediately work out to being like fucking racist or misogynist. Some people's anxiety response is they work out to wanting to eat fucking cheese. I mean, that is not like, I mean, talk about essentializing. Oh, people are anxious, and therefore they just become fascists with absolutely no predisposition to it. Is one of the worst takes of 2016, and I have to say that it is comforting in this unstable world we live in to know that the worst takes of 2016 can still be reliably located on Vosh's YouTube channel.
The person is manipulated into it. They have to feel like the sexism they're engaging in, it's not an active, determinative thing on their part. It's a reflexive, a natural and unavoidable response to the external threats that they're convinced exist, you know?
Well, and the thing is that to some extent the threat does exist, because people who are opposing the systems of oppression that they're on the comfortable ends of are actually threatening their position to a certain extent. Now, that's not to say that there aren't good reasons why it is ultimately also better for them to get on the right side of that. But it does make it a hell of a lot more complicated to talk to them about it. That's just a reality, because you are saying, yeah, you've got it better than these people and they don't deserve any less than you do. And that's that's just a fucking reality, and it's not a reality a lot of people are going to want to hear.
That's the way fascist movements like always propagate. They never frame themselves as the attacker there. And I don't think they're all like aware of the way this propaganda works, you know?
I don't think Vosh is aware of the way this propaganda works.
Especially if we're talking about Andrew Tate fans. We really think like 12-year-old boys on Twitch?
Well, where are we? Okay, we're just accepting that that's Andrew Tate's fucking demographic. He has not offered anything to actually tell us that that's who it is.
Are waking up like, yeah, dude, I love to suppress others. my male privilege in this patriarchy is good and I want more. That's just I just don't think that's how that happens. Maybe for some. Yeah, oh boy, can't wait to oppress women today. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, except I mean, they're specifically gravitating toward a guy who's very open about his oppressing women. I mean, it's in his ad. This isn't like the whole human trafficking thing, the whole manipulating women into sex work that he profits from thing. That isn't some dirty little secret. If you read the fucking ad copy for his MLM scam, Hustler University, I mean, Thought Slime and Sophie from Mars did a thing on him, a cringe corner on him, and they read this stuff. And he explicitly says, yeah, I'm, that he made his money by manipulating women into sex work. Women who he made money by making women fall in love with him and then subsequently start doing fucking adult webcam entertainment for his economic benefit. That's his fucking open. That is his sales pitch. So, I mean, that is going to attract a certain kind of person. A person who does not look at that and say, wow, that's kind of creepy as fuck. And I think, actually, a lot of people, I think a lot of these, like, adolescent boys that we're talking about, because for some reason, Vosh is convinced that it's all just fucking adolescent boys. I'm not convinced of it, and I haven't really seen any figures to say one way or another. That they're the ones, and that they've decided to gravitate towards this guy. And I think it's it's going to be a more specific demographic than that, because it's a very niche appeal here we're talking about. Yeah, exactly. He's not secretive. He has it right out there. I mean, he's not doing a mop-in where you join the political cult and then it turns out to be a fucked up sex cult too. He's got a fucked up sex cult and then you discover also it's kind of political.
Okay, fine. Former reactionaries in the chat. Have you ever, when you were reactionary, did you ever? And I don't want
The
emotes,
fact
I
that
want
they're
facts.
watching Vosh tells me they're not necessarily all that former reactionary.
Did you ever think of your reactionary tendencies as an active, affirmative desire and interest in the suppression of other groups? Or did you have fears, anxieties, or misconceptions that your reactionary beliefs were meant to assuage? And
Okay, because self-reporting on this is totally 100% always reliable, especially self-reporting of the people who self-select into Vosh's audience, where they still get to do a lot of the reactionary shit that they're into because Vosh is into a lot of that reactionary shit too, and feel good about themselves. I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, I'm not saying you don't also ask them. I'm saying that you gotta look at it. You gotta you take a critical approach to that. Because the thing is, what he's saying is something that is a very feel good response. It is an ego tonic response. Because if your explanation is that, it doesn't actually sound. That makes you sound like a much less bad person than if you say that you decided to join people who want to, oppress people and exploit people because you wanted to do those
in some
things.
way, that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because when I was 12, I wasn't like a hyper woke feminist lord or whatever. And when I was
Yeah, well, you're still not. So, what's your point?
12, I probably did have some like kind of dumb views about girls. But I
Oh, yeah, well, as opposed to now, when I mean, he's just fucking uh, Anita Sarkeesian microdosing tea.
never thought I wanted to be better than girls. I just thought like, well, girls do this, so therefore this. Like, it was never like, I never felt like I was making a choice. And I don't think a lot of
And again, here's the thing: a lot of right wing ideology specifically is about trying to say that certain things that just happen to also be very convenient to the people on the comfortable ends of systems of oppression are just inherent. Oh, you know, it's not that you're fucking useless around the house. Your wife is just inherently better at fucking cleaning your shit up every day. You know, it's just you're inherently not capable of doing that so well. So you don't need to feel bad about that. I mean, that is the fucking sales pitch a lot of the time. It is a big excuse to not do more. Yeah. Yeah, they are both vile
People in
misogynists.
reactionary movements do either. You know? Maybe that's one of the most dangerous things the left offers young people, a choice. And that kind of like that's a little difficult, you know?
I mean, the thing is, the other thing, when he talks about reactionaries, it is, of course, in the context of him wanting to get them on his show because platforming reactionaries is kind of his thing. And so, obviously, giving them an explanation for their, like, ideological origin story that doesn't make them all that bad of a person, doesn't sound like they're all that shitty, is going to be, that's going to make them feel comfortable. That is a reason to question it as well.
The fascist messaging is this is the way the world is, so you have no choice to believe X. And the leftist messaging is like, if you can choose to be better.
Except they don't say you have no choice. These days, the fascist messaging is you can choose the red pill or the blue pill. They've, shot all over the intended symbolism of the Matrix with that. They specifically say you have the choice to recognize the world for what it is, which is, by which they mean their bullshit, or to just go on being a Shurson, which I assume is the singular of sheeple.
Better, the world can be like this. And there's nothing wrong with wanting people to be better, but I do think we could do a bit more to like soften the effectiveness of the anxiety baiting on the part of the right. Vosh, I went on a date with a dude in college who said he almost got indoctrinated into a cult and only realized when they asked him to cut his hair off and stop talking to women, he dipped after that. Holy shit. Well, hey, glad he dipped there. You don't think that the teen boys do see it as a power play over girls? I mean, once people like Andrew Tate got to them? No.
Yeah, but I mean, and the thing is, I mean, yeah, sexual assault in amongst like is not unheard of in that age group, and they learn that from someplace, and they learn that in part from their fucking parents and teachers who are like who tell girls to just put up with a lot of bullshit that they should not have to put up with.
I don't think teen boys are thinking I have male privilege that I want to promote and preserve. Teen boys who are chauvinists think women have the privilege. For those of you who haven't been a high school boy, for those of you who don't remember, in a lot of social situations in high school, especially.
Yeah, you see, Vosh is the high school boy whisperer because he kind of never stopped being one.
If you're not super popular, it feels like women have the privilege. They can make fun of you, you can't make fun of them. They can hit you, you can't hit them. They get given benefit of the doubt when it comes to misbehavior.
I mean, and he's not in. This isn't entirely wrong, and this is certainly the way reactionaries frame it, the way Fash frame it, is indeed to say, to like claim that like not being able to punch out women is somehow men getting a bad deal, as if men don't punch out women fairly regularly and get away with it.
You don't. So you think because again you're a teenage boy, not
that he's diving into any fucking essentialism or anything.
Not an evil Bond villain sociology graduate. You think, wow, women have it easier in so many ways. Well, them then, whatever. Okay, well, fine. So guys got to do this then. You're not thinking like, yes, of course, these are.
Could it possibly be that there's more than one option and that it's actually more complicated than this, and that maybe that's what fucking Big Joel was trying to say? This was so much better when he was just watching Big Joel, because Big Joel tends to have a fairly good point about stuff like this. Well, and certainly way better than Laughing Boy here.
Not a wonder that you think all the good advice has already been given. If that's personal opinion, I think the advice you're giving is kind of awful because
I fucked up here. I accidentally moved the needle a couple of minutes ahead, I think, and now I'm not sure exactly where we
Nowadays, the
are.
internet is all-consuming. It is everywhere. Really have like cults of personality back then. They had no advice to give on life other than
Do things that are good. An impactful thing. When I just disagree, I don't really.
probably, you know, I'll leave them to their rent. I'll get the coffee. Um, it doesn't really track to me because I pay for everything anyway. 'Cause there are women who are okay.
Sorry about this.
There are guys who are progressive, but where they're like, oh, kindness. You're tough because you're not working hard enough, and girls only care about really insecure when it.
These instabilities also probably contribute to men feeling.
A lot of conservatives legitimately believe that white people are the oppressed group these days. You think, wow, women have it easier in so many ways. Well,
Okay, here we go.
then,
This is
whatever.
where
Okay, well, fine. So guys got to do this then. You're not thinking like, ah, yes, of course, these.
Well, I think what that comes down to is a definition of weirdness. I mean, because of course, like, non-out trans people are probably going to be read as weird in some way or another. Sometimes trans people who are out have a splendid weirdness, and to me, weirdness is a good fucking thing, I should say. You know, uh, one of my favorite moments in the history of my nieces is when my elder niece, when she was like 4 years old, just repeated something that I hadn't even known she'd heard. She tells my mother, "Weird is good, actually." And she told me about this later, and it's like, holy shit, the kids are all right. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think what it comes down to is when you're dealing with all that shit, you're going to be a little bit unusual in some ways.
These are all
Trying to make sense out of.
reflexive blowbacks to the nature of patriarchy and the diminishing of female agency. I'm actually the real power holder here. I just don't think that's how it works. Dude, a lot of people don't want to acknowledge this. A lot of conservatives legitimately believe that white people are the oppressed group these days because black people get affirmative action and you can't say the N-word,
Which is bullshit. I mean,
but white people can be told they're crackers. And also we get news stories when
they can't because if you say that on fucking Twitch, you can actually get banned.
cops shoot black people, but not as often when they shoot white people. At least it feels that way. The belief they have that they're now like the oppressed group because of reverse racism, that's a real
And the thing is, he's not going to unpack reverse racism because it's fucking Vosh. He's fucking racist, and he believes that reverse racism exists.
belief, you know? It doesn't make it right, it's not right, but it is a real belief that a lot of them have.
And it's easy for Vosh to be the white supremacist whisperer because he's literally told us he believes in white genocide conspiracy theories.
So approaching them by saying stuff like, ah, yes, well, you want to actively increase your power over black people, it makes no sense to them. It makes you sound like you're a lunatic, you know?
Also, what of material factors, right?
And here's the thing about beliefs as well, because there are layers to these things. I mean, I'm injecting complexity into this, and it's Vosh who has about all the complexity of a fucking simple carbohydrate. That wasn't a good simile there. I was going for something way better, and that's what I got. Sometimes that happens. But the thing is, sometimes people. I mean, he must have taken a psych course at some point, and that psych course was any good, it'll have told him a little bit about cognitive dissonance. Because the thing is, we as humans have an amazing capacity to come out with like moral rationalizations for things that suit us. And it's something that you actually have to. Yeah, I mean, particularly if you're on the convenient end of some kind of exploitation or repression, and you're somebody who's trying to end those things, that's something you actually, have to fight against, because it is very easy to believe all that kind of bullshit, because it's very convenient. even if on a certain level you also know it's not true. Because I don't buy that somebody who knows that it's really easy to, like, say, swat black people, just, call the cops to just give a random description and get somebody shot, and people who know that that is an entirely, like, viable vector of attack to use, which they do. I can't buy that those people also believe that, genuinely believe all this shit that they profess to believe. I think that is a serious oversimplification, which, I mean, is shocking coming from Vosh. I mean, Vosh has an undergrad sociology degree. I would expect so much more from you, dude.
The cost of living going up and COVID-19 and political disarray. These instabilities also probably contribute to men feeling a certain way.
Well, look, Vosh, if you let him talk for a couple of minutes, he already kind of pointed out that anxiety does play a role.
I find this tweet
I agree. Hey,
No, we know you did, but you just spent like 15 minutes shitting over him for supposedly not acknowledging that that's a thing. That's like not just a thing, but the only thing. When you could have just listened for 15 seconds later.
Guys can't afford to take girls out on dates. This isn't the case with you, like, woke inner city types or whatever, but in a lot of areas,
woke inner city types,
men are expected to plan the date and pay for the date, and dates are expensive, and people are desperately poor and can barely afford anything, and that does make a lot of guys feel really insecure.
But the thing is that it's not desperately poor people who are flocking to this sort of ideology. It really isn't. That is not what, available polling says. It's not that's not the vibe you get even when you look at, when you look at these people and you look at their propaganda. It's not desperately poor people. It's people who are actually reasonably comfortable.
When it comes to, like, well, can I even date? Like, is this even an option? Can I even afford?
And that woke inner city people think that is just, he's just channeling Tim Pool at this point.
Like, hang out with other people, Yeah, like, obviously there are ways to go on free dates, but, like, let's not pretend this isn't a thing people think about, right? But there are things we can do to, like, for every real problem, there is the way, like, an Andrew Tate type would give an answer, and there's the way we might give an answer.
Well, I mean, the way we know what Andrew Tate's fucking answer to it is. He's told us. His answer is you psychologically manipulate her into doing fucking porno and giving you the money, and then you can afford to do whatever you want. That's his fucking sales pitch. I mean, it's fascinating that we have not actually, 23 minutes into a 49-minute video, and Vosh has not actually given us any, to anyone unfamiliar with Andrew Tate, which I think was probably most people. Yeah, I think that he has not given them any idea of exactly who he is.
They might say, like, oh yeah, times are tough because you're not working hard enough, and girls only care about money, so you better hit the fucking grindstone. And the left-leaning person could say, yeah, you're a victim of social and economic austerity. And
that's like literally, okay, first of all, social and economic austerity. That's okay. That's just so much liberalism piled into one place. Like, get the exhaust fan on, man. Because it's not social and economic austerity. First of all, the term austerity is just such bullshit. Austerity is when everybody tightens their belts and makes sacrifices because times are tough. The austerity that we're talking about these days, that, there's all the rage in, countries all over Europe and North America and South America and everything, that's nothing to do with that. That is a situation where most people who have never actually done particularly well are being asked to actually get even poorer so that rich people can get more money. And that's just capitalism. That's just capitalism in its modern form. I mean, and yeah, does he not think that that's exactly what leftists say when somebody points this out? I mean, I know I've personally been in conversations like that, and it is exactly what I say, except just not in as fucking crappy a way as he
In the
did.
meantime, do you think there are ways you could find like cheaper like ways to interact with people? Like here's some cool local events you could go to, or like here's some stuff you could get into. And in my experience, this or that's nice. That's an answer that's kind, true, effective, does not
What makes you think nobody's given that answer?
entail an ideological compromise on our part, and it reaches out in a way. But I've not like a lot of leftists to that they would be like, why do I have to cater to men's dating? Why do I have to care whether or not these incels are getting pussy? Which is
Well, yeah, because when we're actually talking about incels, yeah, hey, fuck them. Seriously, he's God. Oh, I can't even with this guy because he's what he does, and this is what a lot of sort of reactionaries who like to slide into left discourse do, is to take the sort of response that leftists have after an extremely frustrating interaction with somebody who's reactionary and pretends to not be, or, sort of pretends to be open for a discussion and actually they're just, spewing talking points, and act as if that is the default position. It's not.
just such a contemptuous and vile way. I'm serious. That's how a lot of them would react because I've seen them react.
That's how a lot of people. That's how a lot of leftists would react to a 12-year-old boy. We're supposedly talking about 12-year-old boys, you know, expressing anxiety about paying for a date. Like, what planet are you on? Like, what?
React that
This
way. I've
fucking
seen
guy.
that on social media in the past week, where they're like, "Oh, kindness to men."
Who the fuck are you talking to about at this point? I mean, he's just making up. He's world building right now. He is building the fucking Vosh cinematic universe. Phoenix reminds us the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action are white women, but Bush probably can't be asked to know that. Damn right. Very true. Very true on both counts. And of course, the thing is, I mean, you talk about affirmative action, it basically does not meaningfully exist at this point. Because all of the laws that sort of were put together as anti discrimination laws have actually been, have actually ended up being used much more effectively to sue for reverse racism, this thing that Vosh likes to say exists. In fact, it's easier to win those cases than it is to win an actual, actual like racial discrimination case or sex discrimination case. Because the courts are way more receptive when it's the problems of fucking white men. Which is, shocking because that's the demographic that makes up most of the bench.
What the dude?
The reason young men flock to alt-right movements, very reductive. Third, I think this tweet kind of comes with the implication that
I live in the Seattle area. A ton of women here still expect men to pick up the tab and play breadwinner. Self-proclaimed progressives, usually professional managerial class. Look,
Oh god, don't get me started on the fake ass professional managerial class. That isn't a thing. That isn't a class. Some of them are capitalists, some of them are workers. It's just a pain in the ass that has become a thing. And the people who push that the hardest are often the ones who will very quickly, be very comfortable in reactionary spaces, interestingly.
look, nobody's a perfect progressive, okay?
Well, I mean, Vosh certainly isn't.
There are guys who are progressive, but they still kind of like the fact that their size and strength makes people give them pause or take pause around them, right? Like, speaking as somebody who's like that, okay? On one hand, the idea
I'm not surprised that he's somebody who's
that
like
men are the sole arbiters of violence in society is a patriarchal one. At the same time, I do like being big and strong.
That's not what an arbiter is.
There are women who are feminist and blah blah blah, but like if you're a chick, you're gonna get mad about a guy paying for your meal. I can't, like we're not perfect. Nobody's
Wait, are you saying that you find it unlikely? Wait, I don't even understand what he's saying here. Is he suggesting that that's implausible that a woman might be annoyed by that? Or I mean, what's his fucking
perfect.
point?
It doesn't really track to me because I pay for everything anyway. Because if you pick up a leftist on Seattle Tinder, odds are they're making something in the ballpark of 1/10 to 1/20th what I make.
Okay, we've just learned an interesting thing about the Vosh demographic.
If you pick up a blue hair on Seattle Tinder, and it's probably,
It's weird that this is apparently what blue hair means, because most of my life, blue hair meant a woman in her, like, 60s or 70s whose gray hair had gone sort of blue from the dye.
I'll leave them to their rent. I'll get the coffee. So I don't have much experience with like arguing over splitting the check. You know who also doesn't? You know who also doesn't have any experience with that? Because everything in his life gets paid for? Ooh, hello.
Okay, we need to free his cat.
Okay. Right away, huh? Something
That poor cat has to put up with that, like, just fucking walking ego.
Interesting to you? The back of my...
I mean, he isn't even, like, trying to hold the cat the way cats like to be held.
Giving people advice, like self-help advice, is this really important, impactful thing when I just disagree. I don't really think that...
Ooh. Okay, I might directly disagree with what he's saying here.
Self-help online advice is all that helpful to people because I think you already know all the advice that anybody on the internet could possibly tell you. If I was asked...
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair too, because the thing is, a lot of the advice you get, especially, I mean, for some reason we're constantly talking about the 12-year-old boys, because for some reason Vosh likes to talk about the fucking 12-year-old boys. Yeah. But the thing is, the advice, like, kids get, since we're, talking about kids in this discussion, even though I don't think that's actually the demographic, I mean, a lot of it is very cliched. A lot of it is, like, you get, it's gonna be the same shit everywhere you go, and either it's good advice or it's shitty advice, or maybe it's a mixture of both. But, I mean...
Okay.
Like, who are we talking about?
I'll let him finish the point.
Big Joel, what advice do you give to young men? This is what I'd say. Young men, do things that are good, in your opinion. Do things that you think are...
See, I mean, I think that's... The thing is, I mean, I know he's being sort of glib here, trying to just be, give a summary, but the trouble is that it's easy for people to convince themselves that bad shit is good if bad shit is what they want to do and suits them in some way.
Are good.
Okay, wait, never mind. If that's Big Joel's image of advice, maybe I understand where he's coming from.
I don't imagine that I have a better answer for what those things are than you do. You know yourself, but, of course, you know what those things are. Maybe you think exercising is good. Maybe you think you should pick up a skill. Maybe you think you should...
Okay, what Big Joel is suffering from here is like, I don't know.
Well, he's suffering from being interrupted while he's actually trying to explain that he actually meant what you think is good in a completely different way than either Vosh or I took it. Because I thought we were talking about morally good. He's using good to mean worthwhile.
I don't know if there's a specific term for it, but do you ever feel like some lefties have no advice to give on life other than do what makes you happy? Well, that's exactly what's happening here, I guess. So a couple of things. First of all, whether you think it's helpful or not, the modern generation, like modern Zoomers, grow up on the internet and they model their lives around the advice of people online.
I don't think anyone. I mean, that is a very flattering view for somebody who gives advice online to take. I don't think anyone actually models their life totally on any advice that they're getting. I mean, unless they just happen to find somebody who really, I mean, who really seems to get it, who really seems to know what they're, doing, and really just seems to be offering really, unusually good advice. I don't think anyone really totally models their life like that.
That's not a prescriptive statement on my part. That's just life. Whether you think they
Well, not that he's
need
essentializing.
it, whether you think it's good, it's a fact that they do this.
Uh,
Big Joel
It's a
and
fact because Vosh
possibly
says so.
myself might be the youngest people who grew up before that was the case. I grew up just barely to the point. I graduated from high school in 2011. By then, YouTube was already fully rolling along, but I feel like when I was a teenager, when I was 13, 14, it was the absolute beginning of YouTube. Like, I
Yeah, I mean, that would be about 2005. I was in my late 20s at that point, so I'm feeling nice and old.
remember the big YouTube video, the big first one was that, like, different dance styles one of the guy. There's like 20 classic songs that play and he dances differently to all of them. YouTube didn't really
I have no
have like
recollection of this.
cults of personality back then. The history of dance. I was at the very beginning of that. So I grew up taking my personality beats mostly from the people around me and sometimes from movies and TV shows that I enjoyed. People like to model
So not just the fucking advice that you get from someplace, but all sorts of sources.
themselves off media they consume because it's a good way of getting outside the bubble of family and friends to see what broader society expects of you and what you could be, what the outer limits of
So
human
you've just completely refuted your point, though. You said that everybody's like modeling their lives against, modeling their lives on the advice they get online, and here you are just saying the exact opposite. Could you try to be consistent?
behavior are. But nowadays the internet is all consuming. It is everywhere. And that is where they get their advice from. There's no sense in arguing.
Yeah, but that's actually a meaningless statement because there's lots of different stuff on the internet. I mean, we're on the internet right now. There's also like, I mean, Netflix is on the internet. Fucking Alvaro Barrientos's amazing cookery videos. If you like Chilean food, that's on the internet too. Like, what thing on the internet are we talking about? There's all sorts of, because that's the thing that hasn't actually changed, because it's a lot of the same media is there. There are still like TV series. There are still movies. It's just you get them on the internet. So these influences haven't changed that fundamentally. Although, of course, now there are, streamers that of varying quality and following who you can also interact with, and I mean that's in the parasocial relationships that form with that and stuff. But I don't think that it's actually a fundamental change there in terms of the sources of orientation on these subjects. It's more a source of the change in the medium by which they get them. Hey Shakespeare, ¿cómo está de nuevo?
Big Joel, in my personal opinion, I think the advice you're giving is kind of awful because it's not a wonder that you think all the good advice has already been given if that's what you're framing. You I think giving giving good advice requires
Ah, shit. My Bluetooth earphones are tuning.
giving giving good advice requires um
See, now here, this is when you're trying to explain something that you don't actually know yourself. Like, how the hell would he know what giving good advice requires?
I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this because again, I really respect Joel. Give an example of good advice right now. Well, I did earlier with like the guy's like trying to find like cheap local.
Yeah, but see, I mean, now he's going into examples of good advice. But the thing is, where we started here was that he was saying that the left. I mean, the title of this fucking video is "How the Left Helped Make Andrew Tate Popular," and supposedly because of the bad advice we're giving to 12-year-old boys, apparently. And the thing is, the one example of advice he says that leftists should be giving is advice that I'm certain is being given by leftists because it is just so fucking run of the mill and just obvious.
Things to go to. I'm trying to think of like a really good. Okay, giving really good advice requires making assumptions that progressives might not like to make. Assumptions, apart from being able to make an ass out of you and me,
Especially, I mean, Vosh.
are important in this case because the stuff people need advice on is usually kind of specific. So here's some.
Well, why would you make assumptions then? You're talking what you. I mean, this is presuming like a one-on-one kind of interaction. Why would you make assumptions? Why wouldn't you just ask questions?
Advice that you could give men when it comes to dating that is like ubiquitous, okay? That you would have to make no assumptions for, that you could make safely with no risk whatsoever of implying anything about how people behave, okay? Be nice.
Well, okay, wait a second. That would just be pointless because if you're not implying anything about how people behave, then how is it even advice? Then it's just like static. I mean, obviously, you're giving advice that's about how people behave. You're going to have to talk about how people behave in order to give advice, which is when you're telling people, presumably who asked for it, how to behave. Like, what the hell does this even mean?
Women.
So, what kind of assumptions?
Great. I think most guys have probably heard that one before. But you can try for something a little bit more pointed if you're willing to take a risk and make a couple of assumptions. If you're a guy and you're interested in women, crazy, I know, in this modern woke-a-day world.
Oh, fuck off.
Here's something that you have to keep in mind, okay? Women are inundated with a deluge of propositions from men. They get them all the time. And
okay, so far cautiously optimistic that this isn't going to completely suck.
Oftentimes they're pretty low quality propositions.
Low quality. See, I would call them sexual harassment, but okay.
If they're on social media, Tinder, even in person, they get this a lot. And the reason for this is because many times women are the gatekeeper of sex and relationships.
No, God. This is, like, actually, I mean, this is a standard fucking misogynist talking point here. The idea that, women are the sex gender. That sex is something we have and men try to get. This is just such fucking bargain basement reactionary nonsense. See, it's not that we are that thing, Vosh, that leads to the sexual harassment. It's the idea that that's how that works. That sex is like this fucking, like, little plush Henry Kissinger and the Grim Reaper's fucking little claw machine thing. And men's role in the whole thing is to keep putting money in there until they, are entitled to a payoff or something like that. The problem is that well, not the entire problem, but a big part of the problem is that entire framing of the thing.
That's a statement leftists don't like.
Yeah, because it's bullshit. It's fucked up. It is not, I mean, and it is not necessary. You don't have to start from that. In fact, if you're going to try to give good advice, that would be, a piece of good advice is that that's not how it works. Because the implication in that assumption that leftists don't like, I would hope leftists don't like it because it sucks shit, is that sex isn't something we also want.
I'm not sure why, because it's objectively true
No, it really fucking isn't. And entire books have been written on why it isn't objectively true. This is literally some shit that fucking Tim Pool goes on about.
In almost every culture on Earth,
No, I mean, also not true. This is not objectively true. And shouldn't both genders be the gatekeepers to sex? I mean, everybody who's involved should consent, so everybody's kind of the gatekeeper.
but yeah, how so? Usually, it is the woman's interest that will have to be worked for more so than the guy's. It's not a 100% thing, obviously, but
Fuck
ignoring
off,
that fact
God.
that that's the case for like a lot of interactions,
Yeah, I mean, this is literally this is like rom com bullshit. That is actually where a lot of that nice guy crap comes from. Where these guys think that if they treat you with respect for a certain amount of time, that entitles them to fuck you. I mean, and here he is just validating it and talking about it like it's an objective reality.
it's certainly the way young men like perceive things, and
Yeah, it is the way young men perceive things, and that doesn't come from nowhere because we, as Bill Joel pointed out, we live in a reactionary society, and so there's lots of reactionary ideas floating around out there, and surely what we ought to be doing is not validating that stuff, but saying, yeah, actually, that's not how that works. Maybe instead of talking about thinking of women, thinking of girls and women as like the final boss standing between you and getting your end away, you should think about it as sex is a mutually agreeable arrangement that all parties involved either interested in or shouldn't happen.
it's reflective of young men's dating experience, by the way.
Yeah,
If you're in
because we
high
live in a
school,
misogynist society.
the idea that like guys are kind of like latently interested in people, and women are the ones you have to impress, to woo, to work for, to court, to charm, that's just how it is.
No, no, that isn't just how it is. Jesus Christ. I mean, so what he's saying is, the reason the left helped make Andrew Tate popular is because Vosh agrees with the sort of ideology that Andrew Tate also has profited from.
But that's why I think they don't like saying it. Does it speak perhaps a
Because
little bit
it's,
to the problem that this whole thing revolves around? That something might be true,
but this isn't. This literally isn't true.
but leftists don't like saying it because it makes them uncomfortable?
No, no, that's not what's going on. But I kind of knew that this is where we are going to come, where he was going to say that we should accept some reactionary bullshit as true and just sort of get over ourselves and accept some reactionary bullshit, basically. And that was, why it was our fault that Andrew Tate exists.
You can talk about this in a completely straightforward and like sociologically valid way. You can talk about it in an intersection.
Yeah, but when you do that, you're calling it into question and pointing out why that is just actually bullshit framing and not some just objective reality.
Fashion. There's plenty of good feminist literature on the dynamic with dating and courtship. So
Yes, exactly. That feminist literature points out that you're full of shit. That's what it does. It actually points out why this sort of framing is not only not true, but also harmful.
why can't we just talk about it? Why can't we just say like, yeah, generally
We can talk about it. We do talk about it. Look, we're talking about it. I mean, lots of leftists are talking about it all the time. But the thing is, you don't want to just talk about it, you want to validate it. Because it's a reactionary belief that you share.
men are the ones expected to approach, and like here's some basic stuff.
Oh, well, expected to. Here you were just saying it was just an objective thing that men are just objectively the ones who have to overcome the gatekeeper and all this stuff, and not considering how fucking rapey that whole idea is. And now you're saying, oh, there's expectations involved, are there? Well, could it be that leftists are questioning those expectations, or at the very least, bloody well should be?
On how to talk without coming across as creepy. Leftists,
Well, yeah, and the thing is, when somebody asks how to talk without coming across as creepy, one of the first things you got to do is say, yeah, that idea that women are sort of this gatekeeper that you have to overcome or whatever, that you're the fucking keymaster and all this nonsense, is something you've got to just kind of get used to not believing in, because all that does is set you up to act like a fucking creep
will only say,
and have unsatisfying relationships.
yeah, don't be creepy when talking to women. But I'm willing to say how not to be creepy.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're not able to say it because what you just said was how to be creepy.
And I say this as someone with plenty of experience in bombing while talking to women. That's how you know.
Yeah, you can tell.
This shit's fresh, right off the dome. Like the stuff that I've said about when you're having a conversation with somebody at a party, in any kind of social situation, make sure to occasionally ask questions of them or to prompt responses so they can tell you implicitly how they feel about the convo you're having.
I mean, actually, that's not bad, okay? I'll be fair, that's not bad. That is definitely something, and some people actually do, although there's also the question is, sometimes the reason it's kind of hard to want to continue a conversation and take that kind of interest is because the conversation just isn't all that interesting. And there's this whole idea that you have to make a relationship happen. We all have all this rom-com shit, and the thing is, one thing you just got to accept is that actually, first of all, rejection's going to happen, and second of all, it's actually not a bad thing, because the thing is, do you really want to be with somebody who clearly would not be happy being with you? I mean, or would you perhaps be happier being with somebody who really actually wants to be there? I mean, it isn't actually. These aren't actually very hard things to comprehend, but there is a whole lot of cultural shit that you have to wade through and wipe off of the consciousness in order to even be able to have this conversation sensibly. And of course, Vosh doesn't want to do that because he a lot of that shit suits him.
That way, you can know whether they're interested in talking to you without having to directly ask them like some kind of weirdo. You know what I mean? You can be at a party and be talking about, oh, and by the way, if you're talking
Ah, shit, my Bluetooth is kicking in and out
to
again.
new people, feel free to talk about your interests. Be interesting. Talk about what you care about. Don't be boring.
See, Vosh really should be telling people to be interesting because he's not able to model that himself.
I'm sure you all care.
Okay, I'm gonna switch fucking. Yeah, switch headphones because these are kicking in and out and beginning to get annoying and make it difficult to actually hear what's being said. So, hang on just a sec as we reposition ourselves in the earphone department. Um, okay, this ought to work now.
Care about cool stuff. Be a little autistic. Girls love autists. And prompt a couple of responses, and if they seem interested, you can keep it going.
Be a
But
little
if they're giving you kind of short, jilted replies, you can just say, oh, that's been fun talking to you. Hey, have a wonderful day. And you can head on and go get a drink. What I just
Yeah, although also maybe consider whether you're doing something that's making her uncomfortable as well. But he doesn't want to give any fucking advice that might actually cause any discomfort or require any kind of is any kind of introspection.
said right there, I feel like that's so fine. Did I just say something problematic?
Like how many times? How much time you got?
I guess I made an autism joke. I'm autistic.
Yeah, that was I mean, there was that. There was some misogyny. Look, if we get a list every problematic thing that Vosh has said, we're gonna run out of time pretty quickly.
Statistics, so I think I have the right to. I feel like what I just said is really like not in any way a problem for like leftism. But then why do people chafe at that kind of advice?
Well, I think that the thing is you gotta divide the advice between the bit that sucked shit and was bullshit, which was the whole thing about claiming about like treating sort of misogynistic ideology as objective, scientifically verifiable fact, and the sort of fairly unproblematic advice about being an attentive listener in conversations. I mean, it seems like people would not. I don't see, apart from the fucking ableist shit in there, I don't think a whole lot of people would actually have an objection to the part where he was just talking about being a good listener, which is kind of hilarious though, because how the hell would he know how to be a good listener? He isn't one.
You know?
He is like, I mean, this guy is the fucking trademark logo of guy who is just spending the entire conversation working on the next thing he's going to say without paying the slightest attention to what you're saying.
We need real advice here. We need like an actual empathetic willingness to insert ourselves into people's like perceived experiences and work out, well, how can we help these people?
Well, yeah, and you're saying, wait, okay, we've moved so far away from what this is supposedly going to be about. Because, see, the idea here is supposedly that these are things that, that this is why the left made Andrew Tate popular, which I mean, he has never actually. I can see why he doesn't want to come back to that, because it is a very hard point to sustain. I mean, even the little bit of fucking that Big Joel video already pointed out just why that's nonsense. Because there's just so many other factors, and the left really just doesn't have that kind of cultural clout. But, yeah. When you take that into account, I mean, first of all, I don't buy that there is some, like, that the left as a whole is not giving, empathetic advice to boys and men when asked. I don't think you can actually say that as a whole, because it's a lot of different people. And they do different stuff, and some of them maybe are good at giving, like, advice for people's lives, and some people aren't. And some people perhaps don't believe in giving, like, self-help advice for various reasons, and probably also because of that are not necessarily very good at it. But none of this actually validates his incredibly shitty point, where he's trying to blame the left for Andrew Tate.
Thank you, Merrick. I agree. And you know what really bothers me is that we do this with young women. On the left, with young women, go online, you will find an infinite patience on the part of the online left for examining and giving advice to situations young women may find themselves in when it comes to the behavior of young men.
So what you're saying is that it is an easier conversation to have when you're talking about trying to help people who are trying to navigate situations where they are on the uncomfortable end of systems of oppression?
Huh? Hey, is this guy being creepy? Hey, is this guy being weird, expectant? Hey, how do I deal with this? Social expectations here. I see.
He's literally, I mean, he's just moved around from saying that reactionary guys believe that women just have it so good to just literally saying that reactionary guys who believe that are right.
See an infinite patience for going, okay, let's really talk about this issue. Let's actually like set aside the like boilerplate easy responses. Take a moment and like actually listen to what's going on here. And I don't see that for guys.
Well, maybe that's because every time somebody tried to give you that kind of advice, you tuned them out and started droning on about how you have a sociology degree and you don't need to hear shit from anybody. I mean, I see. Okay, chat, show of hands. Do you think that Vosh is or isn't an easy person to give fucking advice to? Does he seem like somebody who, if you give some well-intentioned advice, then he's gonna take it on board and listen to you?
Like, I really, really don't. And that sucks. That's the advice I'm talking about. Not like do good things, right? It is, Berman. That's true.
Well, but you haven't actually given an example. You've given an example of the sort of situations in which girls and women seek advice. You have not yet given a single real example of the situations, the, reciprocal situations of men that supposedly the left does such a shitty job with.
In a day-to-day, moment-to-moment bit, when we're talking about life and death stuff, it's true that sometimes this stuff hits harder for femmes, but that willing...
Okay, yeah, it hits a lot harder. I mean, because we're considerably more likely to get murdered by a romantic partner.
to listen to them goes way beyond just life or death.
Similarly, you'll find leftists have a lot more time to listen to workers' problems, but when capitalists need some advice about how to, exploit people a little bit better and do it in a more, fucking representative way, leftists don't have a lot of time for that. Well, except, I mean, so many fucking left liberals have plenty of time for it when it's the fucking Democrats, and the Democrats are finding new ways to rebrand themselves to look like they drink water and breathe air. But, I mean, yeah, guess what? It's a different kind of conversation because you're talking about people on different ends of a system of oppression.
It can go down to social convenience. It can go down to happiness. God, how many times have you guys seen threads on leftist social media spaces that were entirely about changes women made to their dating life that made them happy? Even if it was minor, even if it was like a little petty.
I haven't actually encountered a thread like that ever, and I've been on the left and on the online left basically for as long as there's been an online left. I mean, not like early Usenet days. I'm assuming there was an online left there. But I've been around for a fucking, for about as long as there's been like a leftist, a World Wide Web and leftists trying to use it and get their message out. I've been there. And I can say, and I've been in a lot of discourse. I've been in a lot of discourse in a lot of languages, in a lot of countries, with a lot of comrades. And these ubiquitous threads he's talking about, I've not seen them.
That doesn't mean it's bad. I've seen threads get hundreds of thousands of likes when it was just, I did this thing and...
Okay, if you're already talking about hundreds of thousands of likes, then you're talking about somebody who has a pretty big platform in the first place. Because most people's threads don't get that many likes.
Now I'm happier in my relationships. And left-leaning people work with that because it feels like a personal affirmation of broader progressive values. I never see this happen with men.
Well,
I see it happen broadly, like in normie spaces, not in left spaces.
Well, you've not provided, like, what's an example of how you think that would look for
Because there's kind of a taboo on the left with, like... Yeah, I think I've made my point. Let's finish the video.
Oh, so he's not going to finish the sentence because he realized that the word that he was looking for was misogyny and sexism. And since his whole point is that the left's problem is that the left isn't sexist enough, and I have to say, having been in the left a long time, I'd say the left is plenty sexist. I would really... I could go for less sexist.
Yeah.
Leave the house more. What you gotta do, really, is do those things. That is an extremely, extremely difficult task. Don't get me wrong. It's something that I struggle with every day, obviously. It's a fundamental...
It's because you can't state what primarily drives most women in mate choice. Mate choice? Hontus F, there is no amount of grass in the world that would be enough for you. Hontus F, most women...
It's a fundamental...
It's because you can't state what primarily drives most women in mate
Oh
choice?
god, naturally he's got some kind of fucking incel evo psych dickhead in here. Because he's the fucking incel whisperer. He doesn't actually make anything good come out of him, but he can get them all into his chat, and they get into his chat and they drive his engagement, and they make him money. This fucking guy.
Mate choice? Hontus F, there is no amount of grass in the world that would be enough for you. Mating choice? Listen,
Yeah, except, see, you can't ride too hard on this one, Vashi, because you were kind of already moving in this direction yourself. You can't invalidate that pile of shit without invalidating your
men
own.
and women, everyone, non-binary, gender, I don't know, everyone is looking for the exact same set of basic things in another person. They just weigh their priorities differently based on individual preference, okay?
See, I don't exactly buy that either. I don't think everybody is looking for the exact same things. I mean, unless we're putting this in a really general, at a really general level where it's like somebody that it's nice to spend time with and who you feel safe around and maybe occasionally like to have sex with. I mean, if you put it that generally, yeah, but I mean, at that level of generality, it's not much of a statement either. Then you're just saying something fairly trivial.
You all want nice, funny, hot, juicy pussy, rich, maybe some other stuff. Kablamo. You all want that shit. Every single one.
Yeah, except nice. First of all, I can kind of take or leave nice, but I mean, these are all that. These are not actually categories that are that easy to talk about at this level of generality. When you talk about it at the level of generality where you can say that everybody wants them, you're making a meaningless statement because you're saying everybody wants things that they like in people.
One of you. Do any of you have a hot, nice, funny girlfriend who's poor and you're thinking, I love the fact that my girlfriend's poor. I would.
Well, I mean, Andrew Tate does. He clearly does like it. I mean, and there are definitely some people out there, some men out there who really like to like it when their women are broke, so that they can maintain some economic control over them. That is a thing.
Hate it if she had a bunch of money that I could.
In fact, I mean, if you look at like a lot of this right wing shit that he's partially validating and not really wanting to talk about seriously, I mean, there's this whole idea that is actually bad. That it is actually bad for women to make more money than men because that drives divorces, and this is part of the downfall of Western society. So, yeah, there are people who definitely like to have women poor in their relationships because it gives them control.
Could use to better my life. No, you all want those things, okay? Everyone's women select for their dating preferences by. You ever notice how one of the principal
Could we maybe just acknowledge that we're talking about a whole lot of different people, maybe?
Conceits of black pill incel theory is self-contradictory? Why is it that women apparently select their partners based on like wealth and the ability to provide a safe home for children, but also women are biologically driven to hop on 58 cocks a day while on the dating grind? They do this thing where it's like, well, it's 58 cocks a day up until they hit 32 in 6 days, and then after that they do the
God, could we not have? I wouldn't mind not ever hearing Vosh say 52 cocks a day again.
but it varies sometimes, like arbitrarily. It's like, oh, actually, from the get-go, they only cared about wealth. So wouldn't that mean that like the 20-something girls wouldn't be gold diggers because they're looking for fat dick and not for? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Who am I even responding to in chat?
Yeah, I mean, who are you ever even responding to?
The rest of what I said. Women want men who are attractive, have money, and who are kind. No, people want people who are attractive, have money, and kind. Are you suggesting that men don't want women who are attractive, kind, and have money?
A lot of men actually kind of find it uncomfortable when women have money. Like the creepiest men around really find it very, very nerve-wracking to be around women who have money because it means they can go away. It means they are in a position to have standards.
The
And a
pro-
lot of men don't like that. And that's why there's a whole fucking right-wing noise machine, and they talk about why women shouldn't have standards. They try to scare women into no longer having standards, saying, "Oh, look, there's no men left. There's no men left. You're never gonna get married now. You're 22 whole fucking years old, and you're not married. You need to lower those standards and all that bullshit." I mean, so yeah, I'm gonna call bullshit there. The liking women with no money actually is kind of a thing. And with that, I'm going to end this stream since it is 1 o'clock. I think we're kind of done with this fucking video too. I mean, we're most of the way through it, but this is just getting really frustrating. Because it's just sort of veered off into all sorts of shit that had absolutely nothing to do with what it was originally going to be, supposedly. So yeah, okay. Thank you to everyone who's joined in. Thank you, Phoenix, Adam, Shakespeare, Ludlow, if you've been lurking, and anyone else who's been lurking. I am so glad to see you. I have such a great time, and I love seeing you in chat. I hope you had a good time. And do, there's a suggestion section in chat, and I mean, in chat, the Discord. And if you ever have ideas for videos you want me to roast or content, like videos you want me to make as well, like actual video essays, I do that sometimes, you see. I make video essays. I'm just very, very lazy about it because I'm a perfectionist and I want to, as somebody put it, I don't so much want to discuss an issue as I want to just dispose of it. So I want to be extremely comprehensive, and it slows down my process. But I'd love to hear ideas for topics and things like that, and ideas for videos. And in the Discord, just go under hashtag suggestions and let me know. So have a good night, have a good rest of your weekend if you've got one, and we'll see each other next week.